Let's take a closer look at authentication for EIGRP in a classic IPv4 config. Something that is really the key ingredient in EIGRP authentication is this keychain. So it really does bear similarities to this thing that I hold in my hand, this keychain. Oh, there are a lot of keys on my keychain. Well, what's going on here? All right, enough props. We can put multiple keys on our keychain, and we can rotate between them based on time. We could have multiple keys that we are currently accepting, and we can choose when we are sending it and when we are accepting it. So there's two different parameters for each of the keys that we use. So the keychain starts off, we do this in global configuration mode, router, chain, and then an arbitrary name that we come up with. It is not shared. But we are going to reference that inside of our interface config, and it is case sensitive. We then go to the two main inputs to the MD5 construct, the MD5 hash that is generated by our parameters. The first is the key ID, and that is significant. That needs to match the opposing side. So let's say we had two configs side by side, and you saw that they had the same key string but not the same key ID. You would need to be able to recognize and be confident that that would be significant and sufficient enough misconfiguration to break authentication. So we need to match the key ID, and it shouldn't be a surprise. We have to match the key string as well, which is also case sensitive. Now that's just out there. We haven't plugged that key in anywhere. We haven't associated it with any of our configuration. To associate it with our configuration, we go into interface configuration mode, and there are two commands that allow us to get this off the ground. The first is to turn on authentication for the interface. So we do IP authentication mode, and at this point we're saying I want to do some routing protocol authentication, but then we have to be specific about using EIGRP as opposed to RIP-v2. The autonomous system number is coded in here, and then the type of authentication, MD5. And we are still in a world that allows us only to use MD5 authentication for EIGRP. And this is kind of a good and a bad thing. It's good that it doesn't allow for clear text, but it is less good that it doesn't support something like SHA. We then have to reference the credentials that we are trusting. So we do IP authentication keychain, and then EIGRP, autonomous system 110, and we can run multiple EIGRP autonomous systems on the same router. We generally don't do that, but it does make sense that we have to say the autonomous system, and then just copy and paste the router keychain, and away you go. So that's what it takes for a basic and very workable EIGRP authentication. So we do it at interface level, build the keychain first, and then reference that keychain and turn on the authentication.